And this will be the normal, the presenter will speak and we'll do a question and answer session after the presentation is over. You can feel free to type your questions into the chat and we'll pass that along to our guest speaker, or you can of course raise your hand and ask verbally. Please make sure to keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Matur.
Thank you, John. It's such a pleasure to host Dr. Hyman today, a friend and a valuable colleague. So Linda Hyman joined the Marine Biological Lab as the Director of Education August 2019. The MBL, the Marine Biological Lab, is dedicated to scientific discovery, exploring fundamental biology, understanding biodiversity in the environment, and informing the human condition through research and education. So she has been Director of Education, as I mentioned. She has the overall responsibility for developing an innovative vision for all of MBL's educational programs, including the advanced research training courses, special topics courses, workshops, conferences, and all kinds of programs. I'm not going to go through the whole laundry list, Linda. I'm assuming you're going to tell us about them. So prior to joining the MBL, she served as Associate Provost for the Division of Graduate Medical Sciences at Boston University School of Medicine, where she oversaw 30 graduate programs. Before coming to BU, she was the inaugural Vice Provost for Health Sciences at Montana State University and Director of the WWAMI Medical Education Program. During that time, she also acted as Assistant Dean for Regional Affairs at the University of Washington School of Medicine. Dr. Hyman also holds an appointment as Professor of Microbiology at Boston University School of Medicine with expertise in molecular genetics. So I think you can read the rest of her bio there, but I just want to add to her other services where she's been on committees for the NIH, for the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the AAMC's GREAT Group, and she also completed a term at the National Science Foundation as the Director of the Division of Molecular Biosciences. Her interest in biomedical workforce training is indicated by her position as the principal investigator on an NIH BEST grant, as well as an NSF Includes award on which I worked with her actually. So in addition to these efforts, her priorities include academic and professional development, supporting the research infrastructure, providing a nurturing environment for all trainees, especially those from underrepresented and disadvantaged backgrounds, and also developing programs that focus on critical thinking that support the nation's workforce needs. So with that, welcome, Dr. Hyman.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Matur. It's so wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the invitation, and I know how everybody is pretty much zoomed out, but I hope we'll make this a fun hour together, and I look forward to meeting with you. So if it's okay, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started. Okay. Am I good to go, John?
You're good.
I'm good. Great. Well, you know, when John contacted me about a title, this was months ago, and I was thinking, gee, I don't know what I'm exactly going to say, but I thought, hey, I'm going to Texas, so I'm going to think big. And so big is really the theme of my talk today. And as you can see, I've entitled it Go Big and Make It Home, a professional journey. So I will, you know, apologize in advance in the sense that this is a personal story I'm going to tell, but I hope that some of the lessons learned, you know, are ones that will resonate with you no matter where you are in your own professional journey. So with that, of course, I'm going to have to figure out how to advance the slide here. There we go. So, you know, many of you probably are aware of this expression, go big or go home. You know, I use it a lot, and I started thinking about what does it really mean, go big or go home? And you know, really it is about putting all of your effort into an enterprise to experience something to its fullest and to be extravagant. So it really is about a philosophy that encourages one to be bold. And in some ways, I think that does sort of embody the way I've chosen to think about my career. Having said that, it doesn't work for everybody. Bold is not always, you know, the best way to, you know, to pursue your career goals. But for me, this is what worked. And I thought it would be fun to kind of share some of those decision points with you. So with that, why am I forgetting? Oh, here we go. So go big and make it home. So big is the theme. And this is a little bit about my personal journey. So I started in the Big Apple, then I moved to the Big Dig. My first academic job was in the Big Easy. And then I moved from below level to 5,000 feet above sea level to the Big Sky. And finally, eventually came back to the Big Time. And then I'm going to ask you, why is this a big deal? But here's where I thought maybe you could help me out. I wondered how many people actually know where the Big Apple is. So I'm going to launch the poll. And we'll see how good you are at your geography. Can you see the poll?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All right. So where's the Big Apple? Go ahead and answer. Let's see. Are we getting answers? No, I got 0 out of 16 people are voting. John, is it not working? Oh, there we go. All right. This was sort of an easy one. I told you, I knew you guys would know the answer to this one. All right. I don't know that this is, John and I are working on doing this for the first time. So you can see, can you see the answers as people come in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's moving.
So I think you know where, I'm going to guess most of you know that the Big Apple is in fact New York. New York, New York. That is real New York's. Where is the Big Dig? I threw in Texas there just to make sure. Yep. Philadelphia, we got Boston. Couple people thinking maybe the Big Dig is in Seattle. I don't know. All right, the next one is sort of easy. What about the Big Easy? Everybody knows that's in New Orleans. Not everybody. And Big Sky, everybody got, oh, you know, and I was thinking when Ambika introduced me, she said I was at Montana State. So I think that was sort of a giveaway. And we're gonna leave the what's the big deal for later. All right, so as I suspected, I knew you would do well on this little test as to, you know, one of the issues really is I know you're here and I am all the way over here right now. And having this kind of a journey of a geographic journey, as well as everything else I'm going to tell you about, really, you know, enriched my professional experiences. So what's the big deal? You know, we talk, you know, geographic diversity is more than just where you are in the country. You're introduced to different political attitudes, different cultures, different demographics, who the people are that live there, different regional challenges. I'll talk about some of those. But then there's, you know, my sort of journey, my professional journey, also very diverse in terms of the types of institutions, you know, large publics, small publics, large privates, there's government, there's biotech. And finally, I ended up in a nonprofit situation. So I wanted to share a little bit about how all of these different environments, you know, sort of influenced my career decisions. And then there's finally academic affiliation. And I know you all come from a wide variety of fields, but I think it would probably translate into a lot of different disciplines. In biology, I got my degree in biology, but eventually I ended up in departments of biochemistry and cell biology and microbiology and education. And yet my degree was in a very broad field. So, you know, where you end up eventually is not where you think you're gonna start out. So let me just tell you a little bit about my own journey. So the Big Apple, I'm guessing maybe some of you are also familiar with this New Yorker cover, but it pretty much exemplifies my attitude back then as a New Yorker. You know, you have 9th Avenue, you know, there's a Hudson River, New Jersey, and then there's some stuff in between, and then you're at the Pacific Ocean. This is very much a New Yorker's view of the world, and this is the way I was pretty much brought up. I grew up in the city. I went to a high school that had 1,200 people in my graduating class. And I will just fast forward and say, when I was in Montana, there were towns that didn't have 1,200 people in it, never mind 1,200 people in my graduating class. And, you know, I fell in love with the discipline. I fell in love with biology, so that when I got to university, I thought, well, that's what I'll major in. And of course, I want to go to medical school, because what else does a biologist want to do? Especially when you come from a first generation family, where things like research and other kind of career options, if you're good in science, you're going to be a doctor. And certainly that was my goal initially, until I got that C in organic. And I thought, uh-oh, perhaps medical school is not for me. And luckily, I fell in love with research. And again, coming from a first generation family that none of whom went to college, my mom wanted me to be an optometrist. She said, you know, optometry is a great profession for a woman. And, you know, going there to those gender roles, etc., we don't necessarily need to go there, but that was where she was coming from. Problem is, I really didn't have any interest in optometry. I ended up taking a research for experience for undergraduate program, and I landed in Minnesota. I have to tell you, I had no idea where Minnesota was. I didn't know whether Minnesota was a city or a state. This New Yorker magazine pretty much resonated with me. You know, Minnesota's here somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. Anyway, that was a really, truly wonderful experience. And when I went there, I spent the whole summer extracting DNA from corn. That was a great accomplishment at the time, but and I learned a lot, especially from a kid from New York. And what it did is, again, it just solidified my interest in pursuing research. So it was time to think about the next step, where I did move to Boston, the home of the Big Dig, and I actually lived through the Big Dig, which does kind of age me, I guess. So you know kind of when those years were. And really, Boston was a terrific place to go to school, as is Texas, where you're from, because it was, you know, there was a hub. It was a hub of people that were all like me, studying science, going to, you know, professional and having those sort of connections. But the reason I chose the grad school I did was simply based on hearing a talk by a faculty member from Brandeis, which is where I went. And I thought, oh my God, I love this guy. I want to work with him. I'm going to apply to this school and work with him. And that's what I did. Only problem was when I got there, he let us know that he was moving. So much for making your choices based on, you know, very narrow-minded thinking. So I ended up not working with that individual and having to find a new lab. And I must say, picking a mentor is probably, as I'm sure you recognize, you know, the most important decision you make while you're in graduate school. Much more important than what you study is who you study with. And I'm now going to tell you a story that I don't tell that many people, but since this was a personal journey, I decided, oh, what the heck, I'll just let you know. I actually left graduate school well into my PhD program without my degree, mostly because I had a mentor who, in my opinion, was more of a tormentor than an actual mentor. And as a result, we didn't really see eye to eye, and I decided this is not for me. So I left, and this was Boston in the 80s when the biotech industry was just taking off. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to completely do something different. So I got a job at a biotech company, and I did that for a couple of years until I realized that wasn't for me, and I really wanted to go back to graduate school. So we discussed it with my mentor, and he decided, you know what, I really want you to come back. And so we worked it out, and I came back and I got my PhD. And that was, you know, a bittersweet story, but it taught me about biotech, which became a very useful lesson. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. After that, in our field, you know, the next step is a postdoc. So I went on to do that, staying my entire career in the Boston area. Then it became time to get a real job. So I do what people do. I sent applications out all over the country, and I kept a folder. This was before we were really doing things electronically. So I'd get stuff in the mail, and I'd take my 3-ring binder and I'd put that reject letter in there. And I had, a pile of rejects and a couple of people interested in talking to me. And that was, a stressful time of life when you're not really sure where you're going to end up and what if you're really going to make it. But in my case, I was fortunate and I ended up in a great place. And that was my first academic job, which was, no, it was in the Big Easy. So you already know that was New Orleans, and I was a faculty member at Tulane University, actually in the School of Medicine.
Dr. Hyman, are you there?
I'm here, John.
I'm good.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back.
I'm back.
You're back.
All right. Sorry. Oh, yeah. You see, I'm getting a notice that my internet is unstable, so I apologize for that. So here we are in New Orleans. What I have found and what I try to tell budding academicians is that you've got to find your niche. Simply moving from your mentors or tormentors world is not enough, because you'll always be associated with their work. So finding your own niche is really, in some respects, the most challenging part. Of course, getting grants and attracting students to your lab in this case is also part of the deal. And the teaching part, we never learned how to teach. And I was actually at a medical school teaching professional students, and that I was never a medical student. And my personal favorite question is, why do I need to know this to be a surgeon? Why am I learning the Krebs cycle again? So being able to deliver material to students in a meaningful way was not a trivial exercise. And learning how to attract graduate students, and most importantly, not just mentoring, but being a good mentee, finding role models, finding mentors for myself was an important part of going through this journey. And of course, there's the third pillar, which is service, which is committees and meetings and outreach and all the things that we're expected to do. And if you do all of this and you do it well, then eventually, if you're at the right institution, you're awarded tenure, your job for life. And I did go that route, and I got that coveted tenure. And then I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to try something else. And so I moved to the Big Sky, and I transitioned to higher ed administration. And this was the first time I was confronted with coming up with a vision, a vision that goes beyond me and my own research. What is my vision for why did I even take this job? And the other fun thing about administration is politics. Learning how to talk to legislators, learning how to talk to presidents of universities, learning how to make a case, and doing that in a way which resonates with folks to get them to understand the importance of your mission. But it's also really about the balance, this balancing act. And that is not me fly fishing, but I am a fly fisher person. And, you may have noticed that I have chosen really wonderful places to live. And Montana was perhaps by far the best of the bunch, in that it was an incredibly beautiful way to high quality of life. So fishing, hiking, skiing, and working all came together in the Big Sky. And then I decided, well, it was time to, as we say in Montana, cowgirl up. So cowgirl up is really all about, taking it to another level. So although I felt like I had really resonated with the jobs that I'd had and the programs that I've run, I wanted to do it on a slightly bigger scale and to really have, an impact that goes beyond an individual program. However, doing that really requires that you learn to lead. And it is about learning to lead. It doesn't come naturally, at least not to me. And so a lot of lot of trials and errors here. But when I took the job at BU, it was a much bigger institution. So there were thousands of students and many programs, and it was quite a big step up in terms of just the impact that the position held. And it also gave me an opportunity to have a national presence. So to participate on programs and advisory groups for the National Science Foundation, for the National Institutes of Health, for professional organizations like the AAMC and others. So that was quite a last part of my journey. But now I'm talking to you from the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. So for me, and this has only been the last year and a half, it really is starting to feel about giving back. And to some extent, the next natural step might have been to look at, a presidency or a provost job or something else. I really wanted to go in the opposite direction, which is to think about what are the places that really made a difference to me, and how can I, pay it forward, give it back. So I chose to come here because I believe in the mission of the institution, which is, again, getting to my roots. If you ask me, you've had all of these positions, and somebody says, what do you do? Basically, I envision myself as a scientist. That's how I'm trained. That's the way I think. And I'm a scientist. And this is a place where great science is done. So for me, it was the right place at the right time. And I am delighted to be back here in a very beautiful part of the country, and working on, a mission that I strongly believe in. So that's my professional journey. I hope that wasn't too personal, and maybe gave you a little bit of insight into the different things that I've done. But it's a good way of transitioning into what I'm going to call our panel discussion. And the only problem with this panel discussion is that I'm the whole panel. Because I'm going to hopefully address different elements of this journey about what's it like to be in these different types of positions and the pros and cons of them all. And I'm obviously not going to go into any of this in huge detail, but let's see if we can hit upon some of the fine points. So as I said, when I was in graduate school, I sort of had it, and I thought, I got to get out of here. And the biotech industry was just starting to boom, and what an exciting time to be in this environment. But the thing about biotech or industry or pharma,
Looks like we froze up again. Well, Dr. Hyman froze up again.
oh no, do I look
Oh,
silly?
you're back. You're back.
I hope did I have a stupid look on my face, or maybe you're not?
It wasn't too bad, no.
Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, that one is bad. I was just talking about the biotech culture, and it's just, so there's no one size fits all. The company I joined, I would say, was a mid-sized company, and it was an exciting place to be. But what I did was very specialized. So I did one thing, day in and day out, and somebody else in the bench next door or the lab next door did a different part of the process. And so it was a little bit tedious for me personally. It was very team oriented, which is not a bad thing, but it was very applied. What we were doing was a measurable outcome. We were making a product, and it was a really good product, but that was the mindset of being in this environment. And the compensation, however, I'll be honest, was much more lucrative than being a graduate student. So like everything, there were a lot of pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, for me, I missed the academic environment. I missed the diversity of things I could do while I was in academia, as opposed to my experience in the biotech world. Was a little hard giving up that compensation, though. It was, and that's been true all the way through my career. And I love this picture. This is not me, but it's sometimes the way I feel in the lab, that, in academia, as I said, it's about you. It's about your drive, your interests, your finding your niche. you really get to do what you want to do. And that academic freedom is nothing to sneeze at. And so it was a really exciting opportunity. And you get to do a lot of different things. So, there was teaching and service, but, all of those things are pretty, can be pretty challenging when you're also expected to get grants to fund your research, to get good reviews from students, and to really find a meaningful mentor-mentee relationship. And service is tough too, because just say no. I mean, once you start getting good at something, everybody wants you on their team. So can't do that really. Gotta pick carefully. So for me, as I said, I think I was fairly successful at this, but at the end of the day, I thought, I don't know, it's all about me. I was tired of writing grants, and I thought it would be fun to look at something else. And so then I thought about administration, and it's really a different mindset. In administration, it's not about you, it's about the institution. I think this is your institution, as a matter of fact. I had fun time looking for all these pictures, so it was great to see the University of Texas San Antonio prominently displayed in I think it must be your 50th anniversary. So, you're wearing your university hat. And again, here, when I was in Montana, it was a publicly funded program, which had to be defended in front of the state legislature every other year for funding. And for me, this was sort of a scary thing, to go up to Helena, the state capital, and defend the program, so that the lay lawmakers would understand why it was important to use taxpayers' dollars to fund the programs that we did. And I take being the steward of the taxpayers' dollar very seriously. And again, we work at the pleasure of those that support and fund us. So that was extremely important to me. And then finally, and this is the last slide of sort of the goals of, leadership. This is, again, it was nothing, it's nothing that you can learn how to be a leader. And what I found Cotter's rules, and this is where I learned this from, somebody in the business school. These are not things that scientists are taught, but it resonated with me, because it created this very clear stepwise fashion on how to get to a goal. And I can give you specific examples of how you apply this, but it really is getting buy-in, creating an urgency, finding a powerful coalition, creating a vision, communicating the vision, getting rid of the naysayers, get a short win, and then build on that. And then you'll be in a position to anchor an institutional change. So I find the Cotter's rules to be really very helpful in a leadership role. All right, so we're going to wrap it up, and I'd love to take some questions. So what does this calling it home have to do with anything? There just have been a lot of pluses and minuses to this type of a career. The trade-off is that I am never bored. This is truly a lifelong learning proposition. Every new position requires that you educate yourself in the context, in the discipline, in the culture. It is challenging and rewarding in that respect. You can reinvent yourself. Whether you be a biochemist, you can turn yourself into an educator. Obviously, expanding your network. I literally have very close friends in all of those big places we talked about early. And I believe in the mission. I'm never bored, and I am a Girl Scout, so I have to throw this in. You do make a lot of new friends, but you do get to keep the old. And that has been probably the most rewarding part of the entire journey. The negatives, nobody likes to move. Every time you move, you have to adjust, you have to reinvent your life, not yourself, but your life. You have to find new doctors, new dentists, new salons, you name it. packing and unpacking, not so much fun. I haven't told you anything about my personal life, but obviously there are partners involved. If there are children involved, there's changing schools. And sometimes you go through all of this and it's just not what you bargained for. So, it's not for everybody, but, at the end of the day, I have sort of distilled this to one mantra, which again, being a scientist, is L squared, A squared. So here's my sort of take home lesson. I think the secrets to success, if you will, are to spend time listening before you do anything else. And you will learn. If you're a kid from New York and you find yourself living in rural Montana, you better listen and learn, because you have no idea what it's like to really live in rural Montana. Then once you've kind of wrapped your head around what your issue is and what you're going to fight for, you start to advocate that and build your coalition. And eventually, as the last step, you act. And so that's been sort of my guiding principles for my career and my professional journey. But in the end, I want to stop, if this were a normal talk, I would be thanking all the people. And there are a lot of people to thank. And the reason is because and the bottom line in all of it is that it's all about the people. And what I find the most enriching about my experience is just the expansive network I've enabled my career and really coming full circle, including folks like Dr. Mathur, who I've known professionally. And I would not hesitate to call up and ask a question or seek advice. And, without that infrastructure, we really would not be where we are today. So I'm going to stop my share there and go back to the group and hope that perhaps you have some questions for me now. And thank you for your attention. I know this is a little bit of an odd platform, so I hope I didn't freeze up and look too silly anywhere else in the program. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hyman. That was very instructive, especially for our students in the group who are trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives. Because again, as you mentioned, everybody thinks that the next step is careers in academia, but the vast choices available. So the way you've told us about your journey and what's led you to this path has been very enlightening. So open it up to questions.
Who wants to be an optometrist? If you want to be an optometrist, it's actually, my mother is right. It is a wonderful profession, just wasn't for me.
Well, I really, I guess I'm coming from the perspective of a mentor for people that were once like you and I, that, never have been out of Texas and so forth. So I guess the question I would have is, how do we help the students step outside of their geographical comfort zone?
Mm-hmm.
Because that seems to be a challenge for the demographic of students that we work with.
Yeah, I can understand that. And when I was at Tulane in New Orleans, I had a graduate student who was brilliant, and her coming to New Orleans was as far as she had been because she was from Mississippi, and I convinced her to take, actually, this is going to sound self-serving, but to take a course, take a course in the summer, go away for just a short amount of time. And, her attitude was, oh, they only take people from Harvard. I'll never get in. Or if I do get in, I'm not going to be able to keep up with them. And so she took a course at the Woods Hole at the MBL, and it changed her life. It was such an important step because it was a confidence builder. What she saw was that she was just as smart, maybe even smarter than some of those other kids from all those other fancy pants places, like I like to call them. And it was just enlightening. So what she also didn't realize is that they were scholarshiped, that she didn't have to pay out of pocket. So I think to some extent, taking that little short win, like not going away for the rest of your life, go away for 2 weeks, just check it out. And it was that little exposure really, changed her trajectory. It is hard to get people to to think about getting out of their comfort zone. But that was one strategy I tried. I don't know if
So
that's
Linda, can you tell us a little bit about the summer internships or the short courses that you offer, which would be useful for our students?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the MBL, we have a long history of offering courses, but they're not didactic. They're really hands-on. You're in the lab or in the field doing research. They last from anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months, and they are very heavily supported by a variety of different foundations and functions, so they're relatively inexpensive to attend. And we are a biological laboratory, so they mostly focus on physiology of marine organisms. It sounds very esoteric, but really learning about the nervous system of a cephalopod, octopus, or squid is fascinating. It's getting out of that niche of thinking that the only thing you can study is mice or Drosophila or frogs. So there are courses on neuroscience, courses in embryology, courses in physiology, courses in environmental science, and it's just an amazing place. So you can imagine what we pride ourselves on is our convening power, because people literally come from all over the world. So the student to faculty ratio at these courses is 5 to 1. That is 5 faculty members to 1 student, because the faculty are coming in and out and rotating in and out, and you're learning from literally Nobel Prize winners and really scholars in the field. And these are just graduate students from all over the country. So check out the website. And I'm also happy, of course, to answer any questions. But the courses are during the summer. And so you apply and you get in. There you go.
We have a question from Jason.
Thank you, Linda, for a great talk and sharing a personal journey. I think it takes some courage, right, to undertake a career change or to decide upon a career that perhaps is not what anyone on your dissertation committee would ever envision or has experienced. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, how you find that courage in yourself, but also how you look at what you've accomplished and what you've learned in your graduate studies and in life, and sort of come at it from a different angle that makes it applicable to maybe something very different.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, sometimes I don't know how I do it, but I know when I call my friends and I say, oh, I'm looking at a new job, nobody ever seems surprised. I guess they're just
I think you're frozen again, Linda.
no. Hello.
You had frozen, you're back on.
Back. Don't you hate when that happens? I know. Did you get me like this?
It froze just when you got started too.
I was just going to say, you got to know yourself, and mostly it's that I get bored. And so I want to do something else, something new. And so it doesn't seem to surprise anybody, but I have made mistakes, and I have often said, what was I thinking? I'm not going to tell you which one of those jobs was the mistake, unless you write me later, and then maybe I'll tell you. But but you got to take chances, and it's. I guess the thing that what I learned was, just like when I was in high school and I said I love biology, I learned what pushed my buttons, and what pushed my buttons is the change, is the excitement, is the wanting to learn about something new every time. And so that's me though, but I will say the trade-off, and again, why I said go bigger, make it home, is that maybe unlike some of you, that have been at the same institution for your entire career, there's great value in that as well. You know, you are really known at this is your home. People know you. You've known people for years. You know, you don't have to think, oh, when I retire, where am I going to live? Because this is your home. I mean, that is a trade-off for me. I have had to, you know, I don't know where home is. You know, home, it could be anywhere at this point. So I definitely I don't want to paint this as one size fits all. It's not for everybody. The other thing that motivated me is this notion of service. And I admitted to being a Girl Scout, and I am. I really believe in giving back, and I really believe in helping sort of the next generation. So that's what I find satisfying. So when I say it's beyond all about you, I mean, that's just a personal motivation, but I have really enjoyed that. So it's great when I get a grant, but it's even greater when somebody I coached and was able to help get that first grant. That to me is, you know, that's success.
And I just thinking about my own students and all the things they've done. If you've got the resilience, the organizational skills, the work ethic, the perseverance, the intelligence to get a PhD, there really are maybe almost nothing that you couldn't do if you set your mind to it. You know, I mean, I think we think about the academic details of what we've done, but there are these bigger character traits that go along and sort of qualities that go along with finishing the PhD that, you know, the world is your oyster if you dare to crack it open.
Yep, absolutely.
So Ursula, you had a question?
Yeah, I had more of a comment. First of all, thank you so much for being so candid in your journey. A lot of the points that you talked about are things that I identified with. I'm first gen, so even going to college and earning my bachelor's was, I was proud of myself, but I kind of was just always taught, go to college, you're going to get a good job, and not to think about anything after that. And so I found myself going to graduate school, and I kind of felt the same way when I finished my master's. And I'm now a lecturer with the department. And so I see myself in these students, and that, you know, I share with them often, like, hey, I know exactly where you've been, where you, that, you know, the journey, the experience that you're going on. But being involved with the department, I had an internship where I got to go to Chicago and spend 3 months doing monarch conservation. And that really kind of brought me out of my shell and made me think, like, Mr. Yeager just said, the world was my oyster after that. And so I'm kind of feel like I'm in between to where I love where I'm at and I'm comfortable, but at the same time, you know, wondering, you know, if I should branch out, or I don't know, kind of. So I just kind of, I like that you mentioned that you were in the private sector and then you kind of came back to academia. And I don't know, it's good to hear that it's not a linear path.
Right.
It's going to split off. And I don't think that we share that part enough with the students, that it's not a linear path. It's very windy. You're going to make, you know, good choices, bad choices, but it'll still work out. So just thank you.
Exactly. It's not irreversible, you know, you can take baby steps too. Like you took a 3-month, you know, stint somewhere just to try it out, you know, just try it out, see how it feels. And then you can always come back. You know, obviously there are bigger steps you could take that are not as easily reversed, but take a baby step and check it out. And I see in the chat from Althea that you attended the molecular mycology course. So I don't know if you're still on the line, but thank you for recognizing what a special place it is. And I'm glad you were able to be here. Anything you want to share about the MBL, that would be great. I don't know. I saw it in the chat.
Althea, would you like to comment?
Althea just commented her mic isn't working, her audio is not working.
Oh, Okay, no, sorry to put you on the spot. I just got excited that you were you went to the mycology course.
Kenneth, did you have a question? Kenneth?
Oh, thank you, Ambika. Yes, I didn't know if you said my name or someone else's at first, so I apologize. You know, I see a lot of familiar faces here, so it's nice to see you all. I came in a little late, so I missed a little bit of your talk, Linda, but I like the parts that I heard quite a bit. So I'm, a recent GAR, a graduate advisor for the English department, but I also do a lot of work with environmental science and work with a lot of their grad students there, environmental science.
Yep.
So yeah, Ursula, thanks for your comment. It's the windy path is such a great, sort of just, important phrase to keep in mind. Are there certain things that I can tell my new PhD students as they are starting on their trajectory of the PhD program, so I get them thinking early, not just about pursuing the professorate, which, a lot of them, enter in thinking they want to do that, but their pathways are very windy. How do I get them early on, say first, when I start doing orientation for PhD students, what are the things you would recommend that I can say to them, and perhaps have them do to get them thinking more broadly, perhaps, than just the professor?
Well, I love that your institution supports this series for starters, because I think, introducing them, early on to people and just helping them form their own network, I think is really critical, and just learning about other careers. So, again, as I know Ambika from our world and the best world, which is broadening experiences for scientific training, it's clear that at least, and I think this is probably even more draconian in the humanities, that it's clear that the PhD students getting academic positions is a minuscule percentage of those in programs. So we know that. And so we have to think differently about how we train students. And it's important to train them in the discipline, but an equally important part of what we do as their mentor is expose them to all the different opportunities that are out there. So obviously we'd love to put them on planes. We can't do that anymore, and give them internships all over the world, but using this kind of a forum, just introducing them and increasing their network and getting them to talk to people that are doing something different. I know that's kind of low-hanging fruit because it's not easy, but we all are really in the same boat.
Okay, so I think Linda's frozen again, but I just wanted to say, she mentioned the BEST grant, which is the Broadening Experience Scientific Training. I got that at Wayne State University, and Linda was at Boston University at the time. And actually we had opened it up to all disciplines. So we didn't just have it for biomedical students only. One of our biggest participants was graduate students from the English program. And Linda was actually one of the first people who started using burning glass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see Linda's back, so let her tell us about it.
Do you use burning glass? Is that a tool that's available to your students and faculty?
Yes, we just invested in that.
Ah, it's fantastic. And that was, we discovered this as a really nice way of recognizing the skills, this notion of transferable skills, what you learn in almost any discipline and how it can be applied to other avenues. And that was a great, way to help us advance our curriculum, so that we knew we were exposing students to the things they needed to learn in order to have the widest array of opportunities. Yeah, sorry about this freezing. I was afraid of this, and I was actually thinking of going into the office just because.
It happens to me all the time, Linda, so don't worry about it. In fact, mine is more often on too. So,
can you talk a little more about that tool we were mentioning, burning glass?
Yeah, it's actually a software. The Burning Glass is the name of the company, and the tool, it allows you to explore careers based on skill sets. And so you can buy different versions of the platform. So I'm not quite sure which one you have, but it enables you to look at the job market and see what jobs are what skills are associated with which jobs. So let's say you thought you wanted to pursue a career as a medical writer. Are they looking for, English PhDs? Are they looking for technical assistance? What kinds, do you need to know Excel? So it helps you frame and prepare for a career based on the skills that are associated with that particular job. So depending on whether you're a job seeker or a mentor, to help design a curriculum around kind of what the workforce need really is.
Yeah, we have that tool. So all of your associate deans in each of the colleges has access to. So just work with them if you need to explore anything. But that was exactly the reason we got it, was for faculty and students to be able to do those things. And we are going to be mandating the use of individual development plans, which again, Linda has been very helpful in that, as well as we were working with the great group in developing some of those. And you can use that burning glass tool to develop your IDPs, the individual development plan, so that you and your mentor can then figure out what you want to explore, what kind of skill sets you need.
Right.
All of the things that Dr. Hyman just alluded to.
So it is about, being proactive, not passive, right? At least exploring, so you can just explore and think about, oh, I didn't realize that kind of a job required so much statistical skills, for example. I better take a stats course, just as an example. Or I don't really like stats, yet that's something that particular job is clearly oriented to. So maybe that's not for me. It enables you to explore from a workforce perspective, what is an employer looking for? So it's a very practical way of thinking about your curriculum development. So that was a fun tool to work with. Yeah.
So any other comments, questions for Dr. Hyman?
One other sort of comment that I have is when I was a PhD student, they changed our language requirement to mean not just a second language like a Spanish or Italian or things like that, but things like R, right? Or things like, coding.
Right.
And so I think there's, I wonder, when I see students who, they're a bit more technically minded than some of my typical English students, a lot of those workforce skills come out in internships. But I wonder if you have other examples of how programs have used language requirements for graduate school to think more expansively about what a second language might mean, including computer languages, software languages, things like that.
Yeah, I'm, at least in my discipline, the notion of a second language, went away a long time ago. Although when I was in graduate school, I do believe I was supposed to be able to translate a scientific article from Spanish or German or something, which of course none of us ever used. So that went by the wayside in my discipline. But to your point, I mean, the issue of computer languages is of course all over the place now. And now it really has to be part of every foundational curriculum in every discipline. So it's scary, but coding and learning computer languages, I think, is going to be critical. And to your point of looking at using this burning glass tool, you'd be hard pressed to find a position that didn't require, sort of at least some facilness with those kinds of skills. So I don't think I really answered your question, because you think differently in the humanities about this than we do in the sciences, I think. But the computer world is clearly, hands down critical.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Hyman. We really appreciate it. And we'll open up the MBL summer courses and internships as well across the board.
I will be sending you some info. I might, John, if it's okay, I might send stuff to you and you can disseminate it to others. That would be great.
Please, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Take care.
Opportunity. Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Just bye.
Thank you.
Bye.